Hello guys! Welcome to my channel. Don't forget like and subscribe. Little people, big world viewers have been following Amy Roloff's second shot at love for years. She found a partner in Marek following a turbulent and well-publicized divorce. She fell deeply in love with him, the steady, pleasant estate agent who rode a motorbike. He was the one who supported her, hugged her family, and assured her of a secure and contented future. But what if lying served as the foundation for that future? What would happen if Amy Roloff wed the man we've all come to? Has been concealing a secret so terrible and profound that it has the potential to destroy not only their marriage but the entire Roloff family dynamic as we know it. We're bringing you the story that will shake the fanbase to its foundation tonight on LPBW Update. The story starts in the peaceful, unassuming Idaho plains. A tale about a secret that has been kept for decades, a family that was reportedly abandoned, and a hidden past. Recently, a widely shared social media post purporting to be from Mark's long-lost cousin, made public. It claims that Marek had another life long before he became a reality TV star. He left behind a family as part of that life. The family is now coming forward. We are informed that Amy is totally unprepared. It appears that the fairy tale could be a covert conspiracy thriller. This is the tale of the clandestine family of Mark. Prior to breaking the news and exposing the startling contents of this unverified report, information that are so compelling and explicit that they demand investigation. We require your assistance. The mainstream media will not cover this type of news. Only a committed community like ours can reveal this kind of in-depth analysis. Immediately take a moment to click the like button if you're interested in learning the truth and want to track every development in this scenario. YouTube is informed that this is an important story to see. Most essential, turn on all of the features and subscribe to LPBW updates. Alerts. As soon as our sources provide us updates, we'll release them, and you won't want to miss a second. Alright, are you prepared? Let's reveal the truth. Less than 72 hours ago, it all began. A post surfaced in a sizable but private Facebook community group for the Pacific Northwest. In order to preserve her privacy while our inquiry is ongoing, we will call the woman who wrote the post Brenda. Our sources, who have confirmed the post's existence and provided us with screenshots, attest to Brenda's assertions. To be Mark's mother's side first cousin, Chris was the intended recipient of the post, not the general public. It was accusing, raw, and passionate. The main points of her post are directly transcribed here. To my cousin Marek, or perhaps more accurately, Marek, the well-known Oregon TV personality. Nearly 30 years have passed. You probably assumed that we would all simply forget that you could create a new life on TV and act as though we didn't exist. Act as though she didn't exist. Pret. Act as though he didn't exist. He and her. Brenda claims that two persons were abandoned from the beginning. The post keeps getting more detailed. We saw you on that show riding your motorbike and enjoying the good life on that large farm with your new bride. However, a few of us recall the Idaho youngster. Under the stars, in the back of a pickup truck, the child who made vows. When things got tough, the boy ran. You left her with nothing after she gave you everything. He has matured throughout his life, posing queries you were never strong enough to respond to. The ramifications are astounding. Brenda is unambiguously claiming that Marek fathered a kid when he was younger and left the woman and child behind. Consider that. Somewhere in Idaho, a secret son or daughter, probably now an adult, has seen their biological father create a new family on national television. The post ends with a terrifying command. Chris, the stillness is over. The past must be confronted. Now is the moment to confront your son. Your filthy little secret will no longer be us. According to our insider information, this post was shared hundreds of times before Brenda, probably feeling overtaken by the attention, either removed it or made her account private. However, it was too late. The story was out and the screenshots had been captured. It started making the rounds in private messages, Reddit discussions, and fan sites, sparking a flurry of conjecture. The LPBW community's immediate response has been one of complete shock. Comments have ranged from incredulity to those saying they always felt something wasn't right with Chris. However, Fan speculation is no longer the only factor here. This is a direct public assertion made by someone claiming to be related. The degree of detail is what makes this terrifyingly believable, even though we must emphasize that it is currently an unverified insider claim. Idaho was brought up, and a particular timeline from over 30 years ago was mentioned. The sentimental significance of the phrases, "this," reads differently than the average online troll. It sounds like a family secret that has erupted brutally and finally. Now, as all competent investigators do, we must re-examine the matter in light of this bombshell claim. The entire history of Chris Marek on the show must be viewed as a man who might be hiding a life-altering secret rather than as a love story. Upon closer inspection, the telltale signs and hints might have been present from the beginning. First, let's Chris's most distinctive quality before to meeting Amy. He was in his 50s and a lifelong bachelor. He was single. This was presented on the show as him waiting for the proper person. He was shown as someone who relished his independence and had a bit of a free spirit. Let's present a novel theory though. What if waiting for the right one wasn't the goal? Suppose it has to do with avoiding commitment? What if he was afraid to start a family because of a horrific experience that changed his life in his youth? He was aware that he had already failed one? A guy would be overcome with terror and shame if he abandoned his first child. The fear of being exposed, the terror of reliving the past. In that sense, being a bachelor is more than just a way of life. It's a form of protection. It's a means to make sure that no one approaches him closely enough to probe his background with difficult questions. The first woman to penetrate those barriers was Amy Roloff. This brings us to the following hint. Recall the lengthy our trip to their engagement. Fans watched for seasons as Amy was more than prepared to advance. Chris appeared to pause, but he postponed. He voiced his doubts. The thought of marriage appeared to overwhelm him at times. Viewers and even Amy herself at the time blamed it on his lifelong bachelor status and their anxiety over such a significant commitment. But what if the ghost of an Idaho family was the reason for his hesitancy and Amy had nothing to do with it? Consider his inner turmoil. Getting married. Amy Roloff's union would be more than just secret. It would be a spectacle for the people. On a national television program, he would be solidifying his position. More people would be able to see his face, name, and life than before. This would be the greatest nightmare a man with a secret would have. It would significantly raise the likelihood that his history would catch up with him. He wasn't reluctant because he was afraid of getting married. According to our theory, it has to do with a fear of exposure. The secret would eventually be disclosed with each step closer to Amy. Let's dig now further still into something that no one has ever considered questioning. His profession. Chris Marek is a prominent real estate agent. Driving a lot, working strange hours, and visiting scout locations frequently are all part of the job. It gives you a good excuse to take a day or even a weekend off without drawing attention to yourself. Idaho is a short distance away. It's a long drive to the neighboring state. Public records and property databases are now being cross-referenced by our sources. However, we propose this exclusive theory. Is it possible that Chris concealed his excursions to Idaho by using his real estate profession as a pretext? Maybe not to see his supposed son. That could be too dangerous. However, to establish connections with middlemen, transfer funds, and monitor the life he left behind from a safe distance. Consider it. I need to go up north and check on a listing. I'm crossing the state line to scout a new development. It's the ideal justification for going missing for a while. It permits mobility and privacy under the pretense of employment. We're not claiming this is true, but in the context of the Brenda post, it's a terrifying and unsettlingly plausible idea. One crucial place, Idaho, is at the heart of Brenda's accusations. We must travel there in order to comprehend this story. Our research team, which is made up of committed sources and scholars from the LPBW community, has started delving deeply into Chris Mark's early years in an effort to find public documents and digital traces that could support this narrative. Chris has kept a lot of information about his life before Amy private, but he was unable to completely delete it. Given his age, this incident would have happened in the early to mid-1990s, assuming the nearly 30-year-old date is correct. Chris would be in his early 30s. This was no adolescent error. This was a mature man's decision. In order to protect the privacy of those concerned, we will refer to the little unincorporated community outside of Boise that we have located via our research as Pine Ridge. The general public. Records indicate that in the 1970s and 1980s, a Marek family lived in this region. A Pine Ridge High School yearbook from the class of 1980 has been located. It features Christopher Marek, a happy, self-assured young man who was chosen as the most likely candidate to succeed. However, who was she? Brenda says he left a woman. But who was she? We have a name thanks to our source in Idaho, a person who says they grew up in Pine Ridge and knows the families involved. We'll refer to her as Sarah. Our source claims that Chris's high school sweetheart was Sarah. The golden couple was what they were. The ambitious one was him. She was the popular girl from the tiny town. Everyone thought they would marry and start a family. However, according to our source, Chris was constantly on the lookout. Pine Ridge was not able to satisfy his desires. After trying various things for a few years, he returned home in his late 20s, like many young men do. He and Sarah got back in touch at this period in the early 1990s. There was still the old spark. Our origin claims that an unintended pregnancy was the reason of their renewed relationship. At this point, the narrative takes a sinister turn. This unverified allegation claims that Chris was not pleased to hear the news of a baby. It was a chain that bound him to the town from which he was so anxious to permanently flee. Sarah came from a proud and traditional household. They allegedly put pressure on Chris to marry her since it was the correct thing to do. Chris, however, took a different decision after realizing that he didn't want to live that life. According to our source, there was a huge disagreement that broke up the family. They broke their promises. Words were uttered that were harsh. Then one day Chris Marek just disappeared. Cutting off all communication with Sarah and her family, as well as with his unborn kid, he packed his bags and departed Idaho. We are told that Sarah was left feeling alone and devastated. She decided to have a son as her child. Sarah and her parents reared him in Pine Ridge. He had a hole in his life growing up. He had never met the father. A dad. She would show up on his TV screen 30 years later, grinning and laughing, leading what seemed to be a great life with a new family. Can you fathom the years of uncertainty, the hurt, and the feeling of betrayal? If accurate, this theory puts what we know about Chris Marek in a new context. He is more than just a late-life romantic. If even some of these insider reports are accurate, this is a man who has reportedly been avoiding his history for 30 years. The consequences will be disastrous. And it will go well beyond Chris and Amy alone. The entire Roloff family, which is already in a precarious situation, could become unstable as a result. Let's examine the possible effects on each important participant. Amy is the first and most tragic. According to our family-friendly sources, she is totally devastated and caught off guard by these rumors. We don't yet know if she learned about it from Chris after the fact or via the Facebook post itself. However, the depth of treachery would be difficult to understand. Amy's 27 years in a marriage to Matt Roloff that terminated because of infidelity and betrayal, according to her own account. She described the anguish of learning about Matt's relationship with Karen Chandler in her book A Little Me. The secrecy and the sense that her life was not the complete truth were at the heart of her suffering. Now picture that same emotion several times over. It goes beyond a covert friendship. It concerns a hidden child and a hidden family. It raises doubts about every single event of her life. Connection with Chris. Every pledge, every I love you. Was she a part of his new, meticulously planned existence, which was meant to bury the old one, or was it all real? This would be the worst nightmare for Amy, who has based her entire second act on finding a trustworthy companion. The past, present, and future are all betrayed. What about Roloff, Matt? One of the most intriguing subplots has always been the relationship between Matt and Chris. Surprisingly friendly. For the most part, they've collaborated on projects. At family gatherings, they have coexisted. However, how would Matt respond to this information? Two alternatives are suggested by our insider theory. On the one hand, Amy might find unexpected backing from Matt. More than anyone else, He is aware of the difficulties that come with the family being in the spotlight. Another, more pessimistic prospect, however, exists. Would Matt consider this to be a kind of validation? He was portrayed as the only bad guy in his and Amy's divorce for years. This shocking revelation would change the story. All of a sudden, Amy's new ideal husband has a secret that may even surpass Matt's. According to people close to Matt's inner circle, Matt always felt that Chris was a bit too polished. Could he portray himself as the more stable father and use this to his advantage to mend wounds with his kids? There is no denying the curiosity. The Chris-Matt dynamic will soon surpass all other relationships on the show in terms of viewership. Additionally, there are the children, Molly, Jeremy, Zach, and Jacob. They all had to deal with the challenging divorce of their parents. Eventually, they decided to embrace Chris and include him in their own life as well as the lives of their own children. For the Roloff grandchildren, he is Grandpa Chris. They would have to accept an impossibility as a result of this revelation. It's possible that the man they embraced as their stepfather deserted his own biological child. This would be especially hard for Zach and Jeremy to comprehend, as they are both now fathers. The notion of abandoning your own son is the opposite of all that they stand for. Are they going to support their mother? Definitely. But will their perception of Chris ever change? The family will experience another agonizing split as a result. Every birthday, every holiday, and every family get-together would be marred by it. Once damaged, the trust would be very difficult to rebuild. A terrible family drama would revolve around the grandchildren who view Chris as a grandfather figure. Let's connect all the dots, then. What is the main hypothesis that unifies all of our exclusive report? We can create a credible, horrifying story based on Brenda's viral post, our sources' unverified reports from Idaho, and our in-depth examination of Chris's actions on the show. The hypothesis. Feeling stuck in his little Idaho village, young and ambitious Christopher Marek fathered a child with his former high school love in the early 1990s. He made the heartbreaking decision to leave because he was afraid that a family would ruin his ambitions for a different life. He distanced himself from his history, relocated, moved to Oregon, and established a new identity as a prosperous single man. He kept this secret for 30 years, living with a persistent low-grade worry of being discovered. This dread showed up as a life lived at a modest emotional distance, a hesitancy to marry, and a reluctance to commit. His concern grew when he met and fell in love with Amy Roloff. Getting married into the Roloff family means sacrificing everything and getting married into the spotlight. However, he took the chance in the hopes that his past would never be revealed. The past has now arrived, screaming to life again. Brenda, his cousin, revealed the secret after growing weary of the silence and witnessing his seemingly contented existence on television. His marriage, his connection with his stepchildren, and his public image are currently under jeopardy as a result of the domino effect this has caused. What comes next? This is no longer merely a family quarrel. This is a crisis on television. The network that produced Little People, Big World, TLC, is currently in a very challenging situation. Do they disregard the story and want it to go away? Away? It doesn't seem conceivable. Does the fan base embrace it, or is it in a frenzy? Will the main plot of the upcoming season revolve around this dramatic drama? Picture the scenes. On camera, Amy confronts Chris. Tense discussions with Matt. Tori and Zach are taking in the news. In the history of the show, it would be the most dramatic and popular season. In terms of ratings, it would be a goldmine, but it would be a moral and ethical minefield. What about the man at the heart of this tale, the supposed son? Is he the... Did Brenda mean him? Is he going to come forward? Will he look for a partner? Or is he going to demand explanations for his lifelong absence? Is it possible that a paternity test will be plotted on a reality show? The possibilities are as painful as they are limitless. Little People, Big World's very future is on the line. It can no longer be a charming program about a farm family. According to reports, it has now evolved into a show about a man with a secret family and the lady who is only now realizing how big her world may be. Be untrue. The alleged secret family of Chris Mark is only now coming to light. We must stress once more that a large portion of this is based on unverified insider information, widely shared posts, and unique theories that our team has assembled. However, the pieces of the puzzle come together with a terrifying accuracy. We're not merely asking these questions for fun tonight. They are about the secret lives of the people we let into our homes each week, truth, and trust. Is it possible for Chris and Amy's marriage to withstand such a significant revelation? Could there be any rationale for such a profound secret? And who is Chris Marek in real life? The man who supposedly abandoned a family in the dust of a town in Idaho, or the loving husband we see on television? We will continue our investigation. We will keep contacting our sources, keeping an eye on the online discussion, and looking for public documents that can support or refute these startling claims. Your input is particularly important because this is a developing story, and we are dedicated to telling you the truth wherever it goes. More important than before, we would want to speak with you. What are your thoughts? Do you think Brenda's accusations are true? Have any of the hints we talked about tonight ever caught your attention? What should Amy do, in your opinion? In the space provided below, share your opinions, theories, and support for the family. Let's start a discussion. Finally, if you haven't already, click the notification bell and subscribe to LPBW Update. We pledge to stay up to date on this story, and you will be the first to be aware of when a new development occurs. We appreciate your participation in this unique investigative report. Stay tuned until the next time.